Rashmi's story began in the darkness of poverty and domestic violence, but she emerged from it like a warrior, carrying scars not of defeat, but of triumph. One cold night around midnight, her husband returned home. Rashmi opened the door for him and quietly served his meal. But instead of eating, he suddenly hurled the plate of food against the wall. Without thinking, without saying a word, he grabbed her by the hair and started beating her. Rashmi pleaded, asking what she had done wrong, but he wouldn't stop. He beat her mercilessly, screamed at her, and cursed so loudly that their child woke up crying. She picked up the child in her arms and held him tight. Her husband, still in a drunken rage, yanked her hair again so violently he wouldn't let go. Terrified for her life and her child's safety, Rashmi ran barefoot, in the middle of the night, holding her baby close. It was between 1:30 and 2 a.m. when she hid in a neighbor's house. She pleaded with them not to tell anyone. That night, as tears streamed down her face, she silently told herself, "Today my dreams have found wings. No one can stop them now." She had fought for this freedom, every inch of it. Rashmi, whose full name is Priya Thakur, is a single mother from Indore. Her journey to this moment had been anything but easy. She was born into a family living below the poverty line. Because her parents had 2 daughters and no son, society and relatives offered no support. Her father worked as a laborer, and they couldn't afford rent. Instead, he and her mother built a small hut by the roadside. It had no proper roof or walls, only plastic sheets to shield them from the rain and pieces of cloth, saris or mud formed barriers that often melted away in storms. During the monsoon, their hut would flood, and they'd spend entire nights soaked, sleeping on their only bed. When the water would finally start to drain, the whole family, her parents, her sister, and she, would take whatever utensils they had and scoop the water out. Their home was more fragile than the street outside. Despite these conditions, Rashmi never gave up. At just 8 or 9 years old, she realized after marriage, Rashmi discovered the truth about her husband. He was an alcoholic, something he had denied before their wedding. Worse, he had no house of his own. He took her to stay with relatives, giving her the impression they had a family home. But soon she realized he had no stability or responsibility. They stayed a few days in that crowded house, then moved to a small room where he worked. The room was barely 8 by 8 feet and had no household items. Rashmi brought a few essentials from her mother's home, basic utensils, a few clothes, and tried to build a life. She hoped at the very least things would slowly get better. But they didn't. Her husband's drinking only worsened. What he once claimed was occasional became regular, first every few days, then every other day, and soon daily. He made promises, swore he'd quit, cried when he saw her in pain, but the pattern never changed. The financial situation wasn't improving either. He earned very little, and what he did earn went to alcohol, rent, groceries, electricity bills. Everything became a struggle. Then Rashmi found out she was pregnant. When she shared the news, her husband reacted coldly. "We can't afford a child right now," he said. He gave her medicine and told her to end the pregnancy. Rashmi didn't fully understand what was happening, but she was terrified. She took the pills. What followed was a nightmare. Her condition worsened dramatically. In excruciating pain, she was hospitalized in Jabalpur. There was no one by her side except a distant relative, an older aunt who pleaded with the doctors to help. Rashmi lost the child. It was a miscarriage. She sought medical help and was diagnosed with depression. Her days were filled with pain and uncertainty, but slowly she began to recover. She reminded herself of her promise to become something for her child. She had applied once for the high court job. She would try again. This time she would be better prepared. Then her husband returned, asking for another chance. "For the child," he said. "Give me one last chance. I'll quit drinking. I'll change." Rashmi hesitated. Life at her parents' house was also not ideal. She was still financially dependent. Against her better judgment, she returned. But nothing had changed. He didn't find another job. She realized she couldn't wait on him anymore. She sold a pair of gold earrings and bought a computer. She borrowed some money and, using tin sheets and iron rods, built a small stall by the roadside. There she started her own typing and printing business. She named it an MP Online Center. a common service point for local residents. With a basic internet connection and the typing speed she had developed since childhood, she began working independently. When there were no customers, she used the quiet time to study. The internet turned out to be her greatest asset. She started watching Josh Talks more regularly. Whenever she felt hopeless or wanted to cry, she'd play their motivational videos. They lifted her up, reminded her that others were also fighting their own battles, and helped her keep going. She studied at night, worked during the day, raised her child, and never gave up. Eventually, the high court exam came again. Rashmi told herself, this time it has to work. This is it. On the day of the exam, she made a simple prayer. God, if it doesn't happen this time, take me with you. I can't go through any more of this. If I'm not selected now, I'll end it. I won't survive another round of failure. She gave her best. No negative thoughts, no distractions. She focused with everything she had. And finally, her results came. She had passed with flying colors. Not only did she clear the exam, but she topped it. The people who once mocked her, who said things like, government jobs aren't for people like us, you need money to get selected, or girls like you can't do this, those same people were now stunned into silence. Rashmi had made it. Passing the high court exam with exceptional marks, Rashmi finally saw the beginning of a new life. It wasn't just a job, it was validation. It was proof that despite the abuse, the poverty, and the countless nights spent crying in the dark, she had not only survived, she had succeeded. A few months later, her husband also got a job through a contingent vacancy at the same office. Rashmi helped him get placed, and he began earning 7,000 Indian rupees a month. For a brief period, things seemed to stabilize. But as always, peace was fleeting. Within just a few months, he returned to his old ways, drinking excessively and creating chaos at home. Even though he was now earning money, he spent most of it on alcohol. What little he gave Rashmi, sometimes not even a full day's worth of income, was barely enough to survive. Some days she even had to lend him money just to keep things from falling apart. The violence and fights returned. But what broke Rashmi's patience completely was what happened during a Raksha Bandhan celebration. Her sister had come to visit. That day, in front of her, Rashmi's husband beat her. He hit her with no shame, no hesitation, no care for who was watching. That was the last straw. Rashmi knew then. She had endured long enough. She had done everything a wife, a woman, and a mother could do. 8 years of effort. 8 years of struggle. She had tried every way possible to save the relationship. So this time she called the police. Her husband was taken away, and Rashmi filed for divorce. He didn't contest it. Deep down he knew he had failed, not just as a husband but as a father, as a man. Rashmi knew she had to protect her child. He was now 4 years old and growing up fast. She didn't want him to grow up in that toxic environment. The divorce was finalized. But the emotional aftermath wasn't easy. It took time for Rashmi to process what had happened. For years she had carried the label of wife. And now suddenly she was alone. A single mother in a world that still judged women for walking away. She moved to Indore but knew nothing about the city. She didn't know where to go, whom to trust. And as a single woman, she quickly learned that not everyone had good intentions. There were people who tried to take advantage, who tried to mislead her. But Rashmi had become strong, stronger than anyone could imagine. She learned to protect herself. She focused on her son's education, eventually enrolling him in a central government school. She began to dream again, this time not for herself alone, but for a future where her son could have what she never did. One of her biggest dreams was to own her own house, so that no one could ever throw her out again. She began saving. Slowly, carefully, she created a recurring deposit account. She budgeted fiercely, investing whatever she could from her salary. And within a few years, Rashmi achieved what once seemed impossible. She bought her own home. Her very first house. Owning her own home was more than a milestone for Rashmi. It was her declaration of independence. She was no longer at anyone's mercy. No landlord could evict her. No in-law could shame her. No husband could control her. This was hers. After securing the house, Rashmi didn't stop there. She saved up again and bought a four-wheeler. A car not just for comfort, but for mobility, safety, and dignity. She was now supporting not only herself and her son but also helping her parents. Whatever she had, she shared. Her life had come full circle, from the roadside hut made of plastic and saris to a concrete home and a government job. Even today, Rashmi continues to face life as a single mother. Her son is now 13 years old. She plays both roles, mother and father. It isn't easy, but she has grown confident. She's strong. She faces the world head-on, no longer afraid of what might come. When she reflects on her past, she sees pain, yes, but also power. Because Rashmi is no longer just a survivor of abuse. She is a conqueror of fate. She tells her story to inspire others, not for sympathy. She speaks up because there are countless others, women and men, who are silently fighting battles no one sees. She wants them to know you are not alone. You are not weak. And no matter how dark it gets, there is always a way forward. She believes that every struggle in life teaches us something. People will come who will try to break you, confuse you, lead you astray. But you must not get lost in them. You must learn from your experiences and rise. Today, Rashmi is not just a mother, a typist, or a government employee. She is a symbol of resilience.